Hi, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. So I don't have any slides prepared, but I'm just gonna give a demo, and I hope that's good enough. But I also would like to thank the sponsors and the organizers for this event. Um, so I'm just gonna start sharing my screen, and if you have any questions, I would just like to ask you to ask them during the call, during the presentation, because I think it's very good to do it right away. So maybe also if I'm missing something in the chat, because I won't see everything, right? Maybe you can tell me if there are any questions. Thank you. All right, so let's see. So I'm gonna start sharing. So Measure Killer is an external tool for Power BI. Like other external tools, you need to download it and install it on your computer. And I will show you all about what this tool can do for you. But the main use cases are to find and remove unused columns and measures in your reports. And we have different ways to do this. It can also analyze a shared data set, so multiple reports connected to one model, and also do stuff for paginated reports and analyze in Excel. But at first, at the beginning, I just want to keep it simple and just show you how it works for a single report. So when you open up the tool, you can see, excuse me, you can see we have 5 different modes. I usually go for, well, I also add the dark mode, obviously, because that's pretty cool these days. But we have 5 different modes of what we can analyze. So it goes from a single report to a shared model, but I still need to have here, I need to have all the files, like the data set and all the reports that are connected in the Power BI service. I need to download all of them. And then we also have modes where it can run in the Power BI service, or it can analyze something in the Power BI service on its own. And even we can do a whole scan inside the Power BI tenant where it scans for all the models and Power BI reports. So that's what I'm going to show at the end. All right, so I have a Power BI report, like a sales report open here, as you can see, and I just want to run Measure Killer and see how it can help me with this report. You can see it automatically selects the file that I have open, and then it opens up this window here, and I just need to click on Run. And it takes like 1 or 2 seconds, and then I already get this huge output here. And let's take a look at this execution summary at the lower left first. You can see here, I have like a percentage split of the size. So this is the uncompressed, meaning all the columns put together, but without any compression. In the PBIX files, actually everything is compressed. So this 1.6 plus 1.3 megabytes, the PBIX file is smaller than the 2.9 combined because it's compressed in the PBIX file, the data. But here, like in other tools, the Vertipack analyzer, that's what we're getting here basically is the uncompressed size. So just to remind that. And then as you can see here, I get 55% used. So that means almost half of my model, half of the size of my model is completely unused. And what does this mean, used, unused? Well, the tool is basically checking if a column or a calculated column or even measures are used anywhere in the model, in relationships, in measures and calculated columns, but it's also checking in visuals, in conditional formatting, in filters, everywhere in the report basically, and then also in Power Query. So it could be that you're using a column only in a join in Power Query and nowhere else, and then it will show up as used in Power Query. So the whole goal of this tool is to give you a whole picture of all the things in your model, all columns, calculated columns and measures, and then telling you, do you really need them anywhere or not? And if you don't need them, and those are the ones with the red colors here, we want to kick them out, right? Because we can make our model smaller in a very easy way. And this will help us optimize or increase the performance of our model and reports. So I think this is one of the easiest way to improve the performance of your Power BI report, just by kicking out everything that we actually don't need. And that's also best practice, right? We should only load what we need. And this is a great best practice in theory, but in the reality, it's not so easy to achieve this because we don't know yet. We want to explore a little bit. We want to try out stuff. The requirements maybe from the business or whoever we're building this report for will change. So that's why I need some kind of tool to tell me what is used and what is unused, because I just don't know before finishing to build this report exactly which things I will need. So yeah, that's how this thing can help you. And let's take a little look into the details here. You can see that everything here is a column, a calculated column, or a measure. So those are all the artifacts. We call them artifacts in our model. And you can see they're sorted by the size, right? So the columns have a size, the measures don't have a size. And the biggest column in my whole model is completely unused. So that's already something interesting. This order number useless actually, and I'm able to kick this out potentially. And then for the things that are used, like this customer key, it's the second biggest one. I can see exactly where it's used. I can see it's used one time in an artifact, in a measure. And if I'm interested, I can even right click here and I see the DAX expression. So I can exactly double check the DAX expression where it's used. Oh, it's referencing the customer key. And then I can see it's used in a relationship as well. And if I want to see what is the most used artifact, it's actually this profit measure here. You can see it's used 12 times across everywhere. And it's used 4 times in measures. And you can see 3 of those measures have a dark background and 1 has a red background, because basically it's used 4 times in measures, right? But one of those measures actually is unused itself. So I can even see which ones of those are needed and which ones are not. And then I can see, of course, in which visuals it's used. We either have the title of the visual, if there is a title. If there's no title, like this card, we just show the type of the visual. And then I can see exactly where it's used, which page, and which report. But in this case, we only have one report, right? We don't have any shared data set or shared model. That's why it's all the sales report. Since I don't really see the questions, does anybody have a question now so far? You can take a look at the chat. All right, good, all clear. Thank you. So I can go through this, check everything. I can even export this whole thing as an Excel or as a JSON file. We can quickly take a look at what the Excel file gives me. So it will basically give me more than what I have in this table. I will provide some details basically. So I'm going to open this up. You can just quickly take a look at the Excel output this thing provides. So we can see that we have all the columns and measures, just like in the other table. And then I get, I don't know if it's used or not. I can see how often it's used. I can see the size of those columns. But then I also have all the DAX expressions, right? So this is already really cool. Can give me some documentation of everything just by providing the DAX expressions of all those measures and calculated columns. And then I get some other stuff like if it's used in a relationship, the category of the artifact where it's used, like if it's used in Power Query or something like this. And then also I get some IDs, like a visual ID, the coordinate of those visuals and things like that. So I get a lot more than what is shown in the table here. But what I can do in the table here is I can search for stuff, right? So I can see, for example, I'm interested in something. Do we have something used in Power Query? Oh, yes, we do. And now I can see all the columns that are used somewhere in a Power Query as a reference. And I can even open this up and I can see then the XM expression. So I can see this order date is somewhere used in Power Query, and I can even double check if Measure Killer is telling me something that is true or not. And I'm just going to search for order date, and you can see there is something going on here with a list.max operation, and then also here a mean. So there is something really going on. And that's why it's also showing this here. So I can search for all kinds of stuff. I can see, I don't know, do I have any map visuals? Oh yeah, okay. So I have a couple measures also used in map visuals. I don't know. I can use the search for all kinds of things. Of course, I can also just expand everything and see what is in there, right? And I get all the uses basically in all the visuals, relationships, Power Query, filters, even if something is used in column sorting, right? So I have the months column, which is the months in with a number, and that is basically used to sort the month's name column, right? That's what happens a lot of times. So I can also see something that is only used in column sorting. Could be something in incremental refresh, calculation groups, field parameters. We try to cover everything, basically. So assuming I'm just fine with this, or I just want to see the unused, right? And I'm just want to clean up. I just want to clean up my model. One more thing, actually. So instead of this results view, and you know, this can be a lot. Like in a big model, this could be hundreds or even thousands of measures and columns. We also built this table view where we have for every table all the columns, or if it's a measure table, we can see those measures, of course, and we can see how much of the table is actually used. So the green means it's fully used, all columns are used, or I can just see the percentage, so 5 out of 7 artifacts are used in this table, or in like this case, this table is completely unused, the query folding table that I use for demo purposes. Here also I can right click, I can see some details. Or I can take a look at the expression. I can kill stuff, right? So that's where the name comes from. I can kill a measure or a calculated column directly by writing to the model, or I can generate a C# script. In my case, I just want to remove everything, and let's just see how this works, right? So let's have our measures, and where's this calculated column? Oh, so it's also a measure table actually. So this one and those 3 year to date. I just want to show you that we can see what's going to happen. So I'm going to go to kill all, and then you will see them disappearing right away from the model. Boom, it's removing those, and then it takes like 1 second or something for Power BI to update, and you can see now they already disappeared here. So it's basically writing to this model directly, just like other external tools, and removing these things. That's kind of risky, right? I mean, because yeah, if I just save my file now, then basically the changes are saved in the PBIX, and it's basically gone. It's basically over. I cannot do anything. That's why we actually built a restore function, and you can see this is today. Those are all the artifacts I just restored. We have this timestamp here that it was just removed now. It was removed by me. It was removed from the sales report. So what we have here is basically every time I remove something with Measure Killer, it will back it up here. And the cool thing is you can also see that we have other people doing stuff in my restore list, because I put the backup folder in a OneDrive. So in our case, our backups, all from our team, all the backups go into one OneDrive, and then we can even see as a team who is doing what, where things removed. And it is a good way to collaborate. And if some people are working on the same model at the same time, this could help, you know. So that's how we can remove measures and calculated columns. But what about the columns, the Power Query columns, right? So for those, we cannot really do it automatically yet. We might have something in the future. but right now we still have to do it semi-automatically. So you can see here I have this list of tables. So those are all the tables in my model that have unused columns. And what I can do is I can just go table by table, and it's generating me a new M code. And I can just copy paste this into the old one. And that way, Measure Killer will take out whatever it doesn't need. So I go into, I know that this is the F salesman, right? My fact table. I go into the M code, I go into the advanced editor, I select everything, and I just paste it. And you can see it's adding one step at the end. So basically, it takes the old query, adds one step at the end, and in that step, it takes out the unused columns. So it's a very safe way to remove those, because I can always either completely out that Measure Killer created, or if I chose to remove other columns, I even have this little icon here where I can add columns back that I took out. So I can even add individual columns back if I took out like a lot of those. So I'm gonna go step by step now through those queries, and I'm gonna take out, or I'm gonna paste the M code from, oh, sorry, this was the wrong one. This is the products actually. Do I have two? No, wait a second. What's going on here? Mm, this is the reference. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it says reference, right? I thought it's this one, but actually it's this one. So it was my mistake actually. So here we go. Yes, this is it. So I'm gonna take out everything. Then I'm gonna do the territories. So this is a little bit of work, of course. It also depends on how many tables you have, but still, it's better than doing it manually. Oh, and this is the table that has like no columns left. Basically, all the columns are unused, right? We saw it here in the table view. It's completely unused. That's why the remove other columns does not work. So I can either do a remove columns, but actually what is even better here is to just deactivate the load maybe. I could also remove the whole query, but I actually want to keep this for later. So, and then I have my calendar table, and here I can also take some stuff out. And I can always add this back in later, right? So it's not a big deal to take it out. So yeah, this is good. I think I did all the queries. And now I can just go to close and apply, and Power BI will apply those changes, will load the data from my source, and then I can see what has changed, and we will have an updated version of this once this load is finished. And in the meantime, we can take some questions if there are any. We can check the chat. Do you guys have any questions? Any comments maybe? Has anybody tried it out yet? Has anybody used Measure Killer and would like to share how they liked it? Anyway, let's just wait here. So I'm actually connected to my phone, so that's where the internet connection might not be perfect. That's why it takes a little bit probably to even load those few megabytes, but it shouldn't take longer than a few seconds. Oh yeah, here we go. All right. Almost finished. Because once this refreshes, we'll have an updated version of the size in our model. And then we can also see that reflected inside Measure Killer. And we can basically see the results of our work, right? So because we want to go to everything used, we want to have nothing unused anymore. And that's why we have to wait a little bit here. but it shouldn't take much longer. Just if I did this now, it probably wouldn't work yet. It has to really refresh this completely. Okay, let's see. This is really a small amount of data. That's why I'm kind of surprised that it's taking that long to load everything. Also, my memory and the computer seems fine, right? So what we can do is actually we can check into this threads, those different processes that Power BI is running, and those mashup containers. That's what Power Query is doing. The web view stuff is more like the front end, and analysis services is like our database in the background. Also, it actually didn't load the calendar table yet, so that's weird. But now it's doing that, and then hopefully this will finish in a second. All right, here we go. So now it's done. You see it's doing a little refresh on all the visuals, because if something went wrong, one of my visuals would break, right? But that's basically the promise of the tool, is that this does not happen. So everything still looks fine. I even have some tooltip pages here, right? Everything is fine. So everything worked out. And now, of course, I can run again, and I can see now that we updated everything. And I still have a little bit of unused, and that's just because I guess I forgot one of those tables. But still, you can see 94% now. We have everything almost used, and that's what we want to reduce this model. All right, so that is just a simple version of this, but this tool can do a lot more. Let's go into the Power BI service. That's where it really gets interesting. So once I open up this one of those online modes, and I tested this before I did the presentation, that's why it's working like magically. But actually, normally I need to do this. I need to authenticate the tool. Basically, I need to log in with a Microsoft account, because only then it can do something, right? So that's what I'm just showing now. We can also have this re-authenticate, and that's what I'm just doing to show you how it works. It's just this so-called OAuth login or authentication. And then see here, we have a model in the service with 2 reports connected. And I want to analyze that without needing any Power BI desktop, right? We don't need this anymore. And I get a list of all the workspaces here. Those are all the premium workspaces in my tenant. And then I get the weather data set. And why only premium? Well, because we're doing an XMLA connection, and that is only available for premium workspaces. So that's why the data set has to be in a premium workspace for everything to work. And I selected this data set here, this weather data set, and now it's basically asking me where it should search for connected reports. I'm just going to select 2 workspaces, but we can later see also what happens if I want to find everything. Now it's only searching for those 2 workspaces for connected reports, right? Because in a lot of cases, we don't have access to all the workspaces. In my case, I actually have a lot of access because we have a small tenant. But in most cases, yeah, you have access to a couple of workspaces, and then that's it. And you need to have at least contributor access on a workspace for this to work. If you just have viewer, it's not enough. So now you can see I have my data set, and then I have 3 reports connected to it. One of them is a Power BI report. That's basically the report of the data set itself. And then we have 2 paginated reports that are connected to the model. and I just want to analyze those maybe, or I want to add something else, I have the chance here to add a local file. So the cool thing is if I still have something under development and it's not in the Power BI service yet, I can drag and drop into this window here, a Power BI file, or even better, I can add an analyze in Excel file. So actually, I have an analyze in Excel file somewhere here. See, here, this is it. So this is an analyze Excel file on top of this semantic model. You can see I just drag and dropped it in here, and then we can run it, and we will find out what is used in this analyze in Excel file that somebody has built on top of this Power BI semantic model. If you have any questions, just please put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm gonna slowly continue here. So we still see everything, but I have to run to really get the results of the tool. And now it's basically triggering this XMLA connection. So it only analyzes the metadata of the semantic model and of all the reports that I'm selecting. It just gets the metadata because that's what is relevant. It doesn't really need to look into the real data, and it does not do that. So it only interacts with any metadata, and it apparently already finished the model, and now you can see it's getting those three reports, and it's done, and I get my output based on all the files I selected. I can see that only half of the size of my model is actually in use. The other half is unused. And you can also see there's something called used by unused. So this is a third status that we introduced recently. So we don't have only green and red. So we don't have it is used somewhere or is unused, but we also have something called used by unused. And I will take some time now to explain this. This is really interesting because imagine this column here, this precipitation in millimeters. This column, it is used. It's used in an artifact, but it is used in an artifact that is unused. So basically, it's only used in a place where the thing is unused, and we will remove that. So remember, we will remove all the red ones, right? And there's a red one that is using this one. So when I take out the red one, this will change from yellow to red itself, and then I can also take that out. So basically, that's why we have this status. Something is used, but everywhere it's used, it's completely unused. So that's why basically the yellow ones will become red. Once we remove the red ones, the yellow ones will become red, and then also we can take those out in a second round, basically. So now we have a bigger model. We have more reports, and we can see just where it's used again. And of course, something maybe that might be interesting now is if I can see that it's not used, not used in the data set or in that report, but used somewhere else. You can see here, for example, this ISO column. It is used in an Excel field, right? So this is really somewhere in the analyze in Excel, somebody used this column Excel file. And then I could also find something, oh yeah, for example, this one is used in the paginated report because we also had two paginated reports connected to this data set. I can even analyze multiple Power BI models with Measure Killer, and then it will again find all the connected reports. But you still need to have access to those workspaces, right? If you don't have access to all the workspaces, then you always might miss something because you might miss a report that has been built on top of the model because you just don't have access to all the workspaces, right? So that's why we built this tenant admin mode. Here, you really need to be an administrator in your Power BI tenant. So that can be either a Fabric admin, a Power Platform admin, or the global admin. So one of those three roles, the user you run this tool with, you needs to have to be able to do this. And in my case, I am a Fabric administrator. And now let's take a look at what I can see now if I open up and I want to analyze the weather data set. You can see I see a bunch of reports. So there's a lot more. And I just didn't have access to that with my personal user. But now, since I'm running this as an admin, it's showing me everything. And we can see there's a couple of Power BI reports, even more page unit reports, and there's a second model even. So there's a composite model, a downstream semantic model or child model that somebody built. So that's a direct query connection to our parent model or to the original model that we analyzed. So somebody even built that, and then there's a report attached to this. So if I'm running this as an admin, I see much more and actually see everything that I need to see to have a full account of everything, a full analysis. And of course, I can now again say, oh, I still want to add my analyze in Excel, right? Because that's important. I don't want this to break down. I need to make sure I add all the reports here that are important, so that when I clean up this golden data set here, basically none of the reports I added will break down because everything will be taken into account for the analysis. So this is the only way really to get a full lineage, I would say, because even in Power BI, if I open up Power BI and I go to the impact analysis, I can see a couple of things, but then it's showing me there's 7 more items with limited access, and that's exactly the ones that I'm seeing here in the UI, right? That I can see stuff where I don't even have access to. All right. So now I can run this, and you can see I don't have access to those workspaces, right? So what's going to happen is it will grant me access to those workspaces temporarily, only to run the analysis. So it's adding me as a contributor to those workspaces, and then it's refreshing the permissions, and then it's fetching all the metadata of the Power BI model again, and all those connected reports. And that might take a few seconds. It's a couple more reports now, so it might take like 10 or 20 seconds. And then once it ran everything, or once it fetched all that, it will ask me to remove the access again, right? Because otherwise, it will give me access to all kinds of workspace and will never take it away. But in a lot of cases, we don't want to keep any additional access. And that's why we only get the access to do the analysis. And then we will take it away again if you want, so that we put it back in the original state, all the access like it was before using this tool. Do we have any questions so far? I don't see anything in the chat. Otherwise, you can also come off mute if you want. All right. So this is taking a little longer. Yeah, so it all depends on your internet connection, unfortunately. If you have a bad internet connection, it might take even like 30 seconds, might even take a minute to do everything. It also could depend on the size of the model. If you have hundreds or thousands of measures and columns, it will take longer than it should. But yeah, this is just how it is. And I hope my internet connection is stable enough so that it actually can finish, because sometimes it could happen that if the internet disconnects, maybe this will even fail. So I hope this is not what's happening here. Yeah, so Omar is saying that he's new to this and he's just getting to know the tool. Yeah, you can try it out, you know. So there's a free and a paid version of the tool. The free version can analyze everything in Power BI Desktop and even share the data sets there if you can download everything. And the paid version is basically when I start running it in the Power BI service. And I feel like there's nothing going on here. So I'm trying to stop this now because I think this will not go anywhere. Maybe I should even completely restart this. Let me actually do that. Because I think this took way too long. So let's start it again quickly. All right, so I'm gonna run it again as an admin, right? I'm an admin in our tenant. I'm gonna select the data set again, and then I'm gonna run this thing. All right, here we go. Weather data set next. Okay, run. Oh, okay, so now it's triggering the XMLA connection again. That's good. And now here we go. Hopefully this time it will work. I don't know what's going on with it. Even my phone internet is not really good here at my parents' house. So that's why, yeah, I have to improvise a little bit today. So hopefully this will be finished now. It should take like, normally it takes like 3-4 seconds. On a bad internet, maybe it takes 10 or 20 seconds. But I wouldn't expect it to take any longer. There we go. So it already, so there was something weird happening before. But now you can see it's getting all the reports as well. And it should be finished in a few seconds. And we can see everywhere my columns and measures are used all across the reports that I'm running it on. Here we go. But still, you know, only 48% of the size of my model is used, right? So I have a lot of way to optimize stuff here. And again, now I can just see, oh, wow, this column is really used a lot now. Of course, I ran it on a lot of reports, right? So I can even see report level measures here, right? Those are the measures that people build on top of the data set in the live connected reports. We can even see that their DAX expressions, they will also be part of the analysis if you export it, or a part of the Excel output. And then I just see same thing as before, everywhere it's used and all across those reports. Right now, this is the Austria forecast report. Something is used in a visual on this page there, and so on. I want to show one more thing, and we only have 7 minutes left. So I want to show the coolest thing we have built in this tool so far, and this is especially for admins. So if I open this up, I get all the workspaces in my whole tenant. And I'm just going to start running this because it will take some time. So what I get here is this whole list of all the premium and pro workspaces. I can see how many reports we have in every workspace, how many paginate reports, and how many semantic models. Even I can see if I have access with my personal user to those workspaces or not, and which access I have. I can see which Power BI capacity is assigned to the workspace. And in the summary here on the lower left, I can see just a summary of the whole tenant, how many premium workspaces, how many pro, how many personal workspaces, how many semantic models, and this kind of stuff. The personal workspaces, I have to activate them myself. It's turned off now because in a lot of organizations, we have hundreds or even thousands of personal workspaces. So basically, yeah, I can choose here in this analysis if I want to include it or not. And I'm just going to make this a little bigger. And then what it does, in my case, I just selected everything. And what it's doing basically is it's fetching the metadata of all the reports, all the Power BI reports, and all the semantic models in my whole tenant to give me some really, really cool insight into the tenant. And since my internet is a little slow, this is also going pretty slow. But I will just show you some examples of what we can see once we run this scan in our Power BI tenant. So while I'm waiting, and in our tenant usually takes 5, 6, 7 minutes to run, but on a bad internet connection will take like 15 or 20. If you have a huge tenant with hundreds or even thousands of workspaces or thousands of models and reports, it might take maybe an hour to run or even longer. But while I'm waiting, I have this full lineage here, and I can see basically all the models in my tenant, and I can see the reports that are connected to it. So, for example, well, those only have one, but the weather data set, you can see it has a couple of reports. And if I turn on the personal workspaces, which I didn't do in my case, I can even search for stuff that people build in those personal workspaces, and that might be interesting, especially. This is also built to like you can stop it basically. So you can run something, you can stop, you can see the results, and then you can add some more stuff later on. So now I'm just stopping this, and it will finish the last one it analyzed, and then show me all the results. It also sometimes it cannot analyze all models. So some default models in Fabric, for example, those it cannot run the XMLA connection, cannot get all the metadata. So in those cases, basically it cannot analyze that. I really want to show you something that we have in one of those reports here. That's actually a big report, so it might take a little bit. But then we can see some really cool stuff in those two tabs here. Yeah, until then, maybe we can check again if there's any questions. Yeah, something always goes wrong. I'm usually preparing stuff before, but yeah, especially if you have a mobile hotspot right with your phone, the internet connection is usually pretty bad. And since I'm here on the countryside, it's making it worse. So this is taking some time, but you can see it already analyzed a couple of models until I stopped it before. And what I can basically then do, if this also runs on the whole Power BI tenant, I can see all models in my tenant. I can see the size. I can see how many calculated columns are in those semantic models. I can open them up. I can see all the tables. I can go down even into the columns, the calculated columns, and see the tax expression. So I get a huge overview of my models here. I can see all the relationships. I can see the measures. And I can see all the reports that are connected to that model. And then even in the reports, I can see the pages. I can see a ton of things. And something that I really want to show is I can search for stuff here. So basically, I can start searching for things that I'm interested in. For example, I can search for local date tables, right? The auto date time function can be a real problem. It creates a lot of extra size of my model. And in those cases, I can basically search for who is doing that in their models on a whole tenant level. And for the Power BI reports, I can see the number of visuals. I can also see custom visuals. So something that is really cool here is I can start searching. I mean, this is running now. That's why it doesn't work. Maybe I should stop it actually. But even this might take some time. I can search for custom visuals on a whole tenant level. So I can see exactly in which workspaces, which reports have a certain custom visual. So, okay, now it's stopped. So real quickly, I can try to search for local date tables. Oh, we have one actually. So you can see here, I can see all the models with local date tables or with many-to-many relationships. In this case, there actually, there might be some many-to-many relationships, which is also a problem in a lot of cases. Then for the reports, you can see I can get the number of visuals, and then here I can especially search for custom visuals on a tenant level. And for example, the flow map or whatever, field map, I can see all the reports that have that on a whole tenant level. So that's really amazing, I think. And we can also export this as a huge JSON file where we get a lot of more information even than what we're seeing here. But my time is over, so I'm going to stop at this point. So thank you so much for your attention. I hope you liked what you saw.